Hello everybody, this is the Empirical Audiophile. Today I want to talk about something that I've been researching quite a lot. And I don't know if you feel the same way as I do, but when I heard about open baffle speakers, not that there's anything new about an open baffle speaker. There's nothing new to open baffle speakers. But the thing about it is, I've been doing some research in it because I heard that it's becoming more popular. And if you think about an open baffle speaker, like many audiophiles, are thinking, great, we can get some good speakers at a reasonable price now. Because, well, they don't have to build a cabinet. They don't have to do any of the bracing. They don't have to put in any of your non-res. There's so much money they can save by not putting all the box, if you want to say, into it. Basically, it's a baffle. And on the baffle, just like you see right here with this LTAC, the baffle basically is going to hold the speakers, and that's basically it. And then you put a crossover behind it and put speakers that are designed for open baffle speakers. Pretty simple. At least we all think that way. And I thought, great, they're going to start coming out with some nice open baffle designs that will be reasonably priced. Well, boy, was I wrong. And I'm sure a lot of you thought the same thing. And I know a lot of people, by the comments I'm hearing, are thinking the same thing. Open baffle speakers should be a lot cheaper than if you build a big cabinet like this and you have to add all this insulation and sound deadening and bracing. I mean, there's just a lot of expense on making a box speaker. I mean, if you were to make this same speaker today, and then you have to make sure the ports are the right size and they're the right length, this all has to be computed out to make sure you get the right bass frequency. I mean, there's a lot of work that has to go into making a box speaker sound good. But an open baffle speaker is basically a baffle, and you mount how many speakers you want on it, and it's open in the back as well as the front. I remember Legacy, I think, had a speaker that was basically an open baffle speaker. Legacy did. And that was several years ago, where it really didn't have a box or a container. I think at the time I heard it was so long ago, that was like over $12,000. But it had several speakers and array and everything like Legacy made. And I think it was only a 4 ohm. But the point I'm making here is they're nothing new. And I thought it sounded pretty good. So I went to the show, the Expona, and I heard some open baffle speakers. I also went to the Florida show. Some did not impress me. You know, they were okay. And some sounded pretty good. Like all of us, we think that. But the thing that got me about the open baffle speakers is we're seeing reviews on them. A lot of the bigger YouTube channels, not somebody like me, but a bigger YouTube channel. They're going to be doing reviews on them, and they get samples and how great they are. But the price is really like, are you kidding me? I mean, I'm seeing that, you know, these things are costing $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. I even seen them going up to $15,000 for an open baffle speaker. You know, I mean, a lot of people think the same way as me. That's ridiculous. You know, to make a open baffle speaker, basically, if you're going to have a baffle and you're going to be mounting big speakers, 15, 18-inch speakers to it, you're going to need at least a baffle that's 2 inches plus thick for your resonating frequency. When I designed this open baffle with the waveguide, which nobody did waveguides until I designed it, which it took an engineer to design, because nobody did waveguides when I designed this baffle. And that's over 2 inches thick, this baffle is, because I realized that the resonating frequencies of a big speaker get higher and higher, and they have more power. Therefore, your baffle has to get thicker. I'm seeing a lot of these baffles, they're an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter, inch and a half. And if you're going to put a big speaker into something like that, you need to get a thick baffle, at least 2+ inches, 3+ inches of a baffle for resonating frequencies. There are ways to counter-react that, like let's say you're going to have a 2-inch baffle where you can buy materials today. Let's say you're going to use birch, so you get a 1-inch piece of birch. They even have a substance which you can paint on, which is you can use, and you just paint that on one side, and then you put another piece of 1-inch birch, connect it onto that so the paint sticks, and then that acts as your glue. That paint is a resonating paint to drive out resonating frequencies. So now you have a 2-inch baffle. It will have black in the center. Putting on this paint thicker doesn't make it work better. Okay, and this is a product that's out there. All manufacturers probably know it. And you put your 2 pieces of birch together with that, and that will help resonating frequencies be driven out of the piece of wood. So for an open baffle, like this open baffle has like a deadbeat material connected to it and on the ports. So it doesn't do any resonating at all. It's steady as can be. It's completely, this thing, it's like a piece of iron. Okay, that's what you need for a baffle, but they're not doing it that way. They're not making the baffles thick enough for these open baffle speakers. So the resonating frequencies do not interfere with smearing the sound quality that you're getting out of, especially when you get into bigger speakers. I notice a lot of them are making open baffles, and they'll use a small little full range speaker with a wizard cone, much like that of a Lowler. If you remember Lowler drivers, they're still out there. They were full range speakers with a wizard cone, and you would make the back of the, it wasn't an open baffle, but it would have a way of making the higher frequencies or lower frequencies go through a channel of like a horn. And a lot of people like Lowler drivers and stuff. Well, today we have a lot of different manufacturers making full range drivers with wizard cones on them. So a lot of manufacturers or a lot of people who are building them themselves, they use like an 8-inch driver and maybe a 12-inch woofer. Some may use a 15-inch woofer, but they're making the baffles too thin. And of course, you'll see a lot of baffles that use exactly what I have here. They will use what I designed here for the wave as a waveguide. So when the wave comes out, because a lot of designers don't understand how something like this works, but as the wave comes out, it keeps coming out. Instead of bouncing around, it comes out as though this is part of the cone of the speaker. So it's designed, but some of them are making them bigger, so when the wave comes out, it stays that way without trying to wrap around the speaker yet. So you get a better, bigger sound doing that than having any refractions of music coming through, of the wave coming through, because you have different waves of music coming through. So, but a lot of manufacturers are doing that. So I was really disappointed when I saw the prices going up. You know, not everybody has a shop to put their speakers in or to make speakers. I don't have a wood shop. I don't have the equipment to do this. I had to have these baffles made. And this was years ago, 20+ years ago, and it cost me over $1,200 to have 2 baffles made to my specifications. I mean, that's what it costs because I didn't have the equipment to put on the chamfers or to do any of the work to make sure everything was right, where a shop, a woodworker, has all the equipment to do exactly what I needed. So I understand you need the equipment just to make a baffle. But if we think about it, why aren't they cheaper? Because all you're doing is making a baffle and putting speakers on. Another thing I looked at too is a lot of the speakers are, well, they're off the shelf. Lee-Sung speakers. That's L-I-I-S-O-N-G. Lee-Sung speakers or Lee-Sung audio. Now, these are off-the-shelf speakers. They're from China, and anyone can order them. I can order them, you can order them. And there are some manufacturers that use these speakers, and they're charging a lot of money. You know, we're talking, you know, $12,000, $15,000, and they're not using the highest grade Lee-Sung speakers. And people have made mention of that. You know, some of them are using like a 15-inch full range speaker, but there's better grades, and they're not using the top grade. And they have bass speakers, 15-inch bass speakers, and they're not using the top grade of that either. And they're charging $12,000, $15,000. Like, what's going on here? That's a lot of money. I bet you in the comments there'll be a lot of people saying, yeah, for $15,000 or $12,000, there's a lot of speakers that have a cabinet and everything nicely. In fact, this comes to my mind right now. You could go out and buy yourself for that kind of price a brand new, beautiful pair of La Scalas for that price. In fact, if you go into $15,000, you're into the Carter horns. With all the woodwork and everything, you're into Carter horns for that kind of price range. I mean, where are they getting the price at? It's not in the speakers, because these people who are making these speakers aren't using like the Lee-Sung speakers. They're not using the high-tier speakers. They're using the low-tier speakers to make their speakers to charge that kind of price. And if you look at the frequency response, which I've seen some people do review of speakers, I'm not going to say who they are. I'm just telling you. You'll probably do your own homework and find out what I'm talking about. But people are making comments like one reviewer said, well, you know, the speakers, you know, they're proprietary to the company, and you couldn't make these speakers if you wanted to. And people are kind of like calling, that's bullshit, because what's proprietary? What do? Put a different color face plug in it? Because we see the frequency response is the same exact as the T15 speaker that Lee-Sung sells. What's proprietary about it? They changed the color of the face plug? You know, I mean, that's a real comment that's being made by people. Come on. And they have a better speaker out there with a better frequency response that costs more. Well, for the price you're paying, why aren't you getting the better speaker? What Lee-Sung sells. Why are you getting the lesser quality? The better speaker has, like, one of them, I remember the frequency response is like 35 to 16 kilohertz. But the Lee-Sung sells a better one. It goes, I think, like 30 to 18 kilohertz. Why did you buy that one? You know, none of the reviewers who review these manufacturers say, why didn't you use the better speakers for a little bit more money? Just a little bit more money. So you could have had a top of the line. Then I can kind of understand myself, probably you could, where the justification comes for the $12,000 to $15,000 for a speaker. That's just a baffle speaker, because you're using the top of the line speakers to make that baffle speaker. I mean, and maybe this is just me. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I'm looking at it completely wrong, and maybe in the comments you'll tell me, oh, I'm looking at it wrong, you know. But a manufacturer could still make money and charge that kind of money to give a higher quality speaker. And if you're using a 15-inch for your woofer, why not go to an 18-inch? It's just the baffle. It's easy to put an 18-inch speaker into just a baffle. You don't have to worry about the cabinetry anymore. And Lisan makes, 18-inch and 21-inch woofers for baffle speakers only. Why did you put a better speaker in? It makes you think. We thought if manufacturers start making speakers that are baffle speakers, much like that of like Martin Logan's, or you have your other speakers like that, Maggie's, Martin Logan's, if they're going to make speakers like that, fine. But why is the price not showing it? You saved a lot in engineering. You saved a lot of money in everything. Now I do understand that everybody has to make a profit, and I do understand that. You have overhead, you have costs, you have insurance to make something. Yeah, but to turn around and charge a lot of money, and I'm talking $11,000, $12,000, $15,000 for a baffle speaker, and you're not using the highest quality speakers that Lisan sells, and people can look it up because it's open to the public. That's not good, because people see that and people make comments about that. What are you charging so much for when you're not using the top of the line of quality speakers from that manufacturer? Now, I'm not trying to badmouth anybody. That's not my job here. I'm just bringing up that I was very disappointed in baffle speakers because they are so extremely expensive for what you're getting. And they do need the right placement. And that's the big thing, the right placement. You get these reviewers, they keep telling you, that they place the speakers. Well, first of all, tell us how far you have the speakers from the wall, and tell us what the distance is of your speakers from center line to center line of your speaker. That'd be the center line of the speaker to center line. Let us know, what do you have to get your sound stage? They seem to leave that out. They may say, oh, I have them, 4 feet from the wall. Well, there was a survey done, I just saw a survey done of audiophiles, and the majority of audiophiles do not have their speakers more than a foot away from their wall. The majority are audiophiles. So what is that telling you right there? People don't have the room. And I've often said this for years. People don't have room to take their speakers and put them 4 feet out in the room. The majority of audiophiles have their speakers a foot or less away from the back wall because you got to live with your family. And homes are expensive. With a 2,000 square foot home, you're not going to get big, huge rooms where you can pull your speakers out 4 feet from the wall. A lot of these YouTubers, they have the room, or they have special rooms made, or they take their garage, or they take their basement and put everything in a basement where they have plenty of room. Because in the house, the wife acceptance factor is not there, and she's not going to allow you to stick your stereo speakers 4 foot away from the wall. It's not going to happen. So open baffle speakers is what I'm getting to, do need to be placed away from the wall about 3 feet. So that's another problem with them. Like if you bought Martin Logan's or something, they need to be moved away from the wall. So the back, what's coming, can bounce off the wall as well as what's coming out the front. So they have a niche. I know some manufacturers that I saw, like at the show, have very expensive crossovers for their open baffle. Really, I was quite impressed over their crossovers. These were, one manufacturer makes an elite crossover. I would have to say GR Research would be extremely proud of this manufacturer. He uses top of the line parts in his crossover. I will admit that some of them, not all, are using top-of-the-line crossover parts, which most audiophiles have never seen a crossover with that expensive of parts in. I will admit that I saw that at the show, and I was quite impressed with that. And they're starting to get a little smarter and say, well, we're going to use cabling a little bit better than your cheap cable that hooks up your speakers. We'll use a better cable from a better manufacturer that costs a lot more to put on our open baffle speakers. I was impressed about that too. Okay, now you're starting to show quality for the price. And I understand if you want quality for the price, you got to pay for it. I understand that. I think we all understand that. I mean, the crossover I saw was like mind-blowing. It's like, you know, I think I even mentioned to the guy, maybe he doesn't even remember me. You know, they got thousands of people. But I said, you know, nobody puts this kind of money into a crossover like you just did. You know, he smiled. I said, this is unbelievable, high-end, very high-end. You know, this is something that you would see in $150,000, $200,000, $250,000 speakers, a crossover like they have, which makes a lot of difference. So maybe because they're crossover, they are able to go with less expensive speakers. I don't know. All I'm doing is bringing up what I'm seeing, and I thought it was a good subject to make a video on. That, do you think open baffle speakers are reasonably priced? Are they a little out of price for what they're giving the consumer? And they're all getting rave reviews though. I haven't seen a review on YouTube that says an open baffle speaker doesn't sound good. They're all getting rave reviews. So it's just something, food for thought. I'm not judging anybody. I just was disappointed that I thought as audiophiles, we could save a ton of money on getting some great speakers for a reasonable price. You know, I really thought that. Instead of it's turned around that they're getting to the point where you might as well buy a box speaker because the price is getting so out of hand. Well, tell me what you think in the comments. Do you think what I'm thinking is right? I've been reading some of the comments that people have made, and a lot of people think the same way as me. I can see why a lot of home-brewed people are making their own, because they are that simple to make. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you completely disagree with me and think they're reasonably priced and you think you're getting your money's worth? So until next time, this is the Empirical Audiophile. Let me know what you think, and happy listening.